Senator Tom Cotton joins us now to react. Senator, is it okay for the president, is it okay for the press secretary not to comment on this?
No, Brian, this is no laughing matter. Never before in American history has the party in power targeted a former president with criminal charges. Such an unprecedented step should not be taken lightly, but the indictment of Donald Trump is a joke. It should be dismissed immediately. First off, the so-called criminal charges are beyond New York's 5-year statute of limitations. Second, the legal theory is completely flawed. Their claim, I guess, since the indictment is so blank on the matter, is that Donald Trump should have used campaign funds for a personal matter. But the Department of Justice, even the Federal Election Commission, has refused to bring federal election criminal charges here. And then finally, consider the evidence here. You have the testimony of a woman who has repeatedly contradicted herself on this matter, and then the testimony not just of any convicted criminal, but a man who was convicted for lying under oath. This matter ought to be dismissed immediately.
What a distraction is for the country. It costs maybe $200 million for this city that's already $13 billion in deficit, asked to cut 4% of its budget across the board, writing checks to an understaffed police department who are told to work for 5 straight days in full uniform. Incredibly stupid, and that is Alvin Bragg. Now, impactful things are happening in real life, and not the ones we've been in. The bipartisan group of senators, I didn't even know this, met quietly with the Taiwanese president. You were not there, and have Kevin McCarthy sit down. That'll be today with the Taiwanese president. China warned us not to do it. Can you tell us anything that emerged from yesterday's meeting?
Well, Brian, it's very common for Taiwanese presidents to transit through the United States. They don't come on official state visits because of our unique relationship with Taiwan, but this is very common. There's many historic precedents with it in the past. Unfortunately, President Biden and the White House is going out of their way to minimize this visit, to say it's merely a private visit, not to defend the rights of senators and congressmen to meet with President Tsai, and that includes Democrats, because there was a Democratic senator who met with her as well. This is exactly what happened last summer as well when Nancy Pelosi went on what is a routine and common trip for a legislator to travel to Taiwan. I've done so myself as well. And again, President Biden minimized the entire thing. He didn't stand up for the rights of members of Congress that only emboldened China, that encouraged them to take provocative actions. But I strongly stand with senators who have met with President Tsai and with Speaker McCarthy, and I would urge President Biden to make it clear to China, not only are we going to continue this practice, but we will stand up to any provocation that China undertakes in the Western Pacific because of these meetings.
Senator, we have pledged to get them the defensive weapons they need to defend themselves, and it's been 3 years now. They're blaming it on supply chain issues. We know there's supply chain issues, but is that really the cause of why Taiwan doesn't have the arms they paid for?
No, Brian, I think one of the main causes here is President Biden, again, is projecting weakness. He's trying to conciliate with Xi Jinping, and every time that America even announces a weapons delivery, then China gets angry and China denounces the action. And President Biden, again, you've seen for his first 2 years in office, continues to try to find ways to appease the Chinese. You know, they sent a spy balloon all across America just a couple months ago. The Secretary of State canceled a meeting with his counterpart as a result of that. But then just a few weeks later at a conference in Europe, he went running after him so they could have a meeting. This is just another example of President Biden's weakness towards China.
And by the way, their dishonesty in telling us that they weren't able to get anything substantial as they did figure eights across many of our military bases until we shot it down after it crossed our country. So I hope there's going to be investigations on that. Senator Tom Cotton, thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian.